you as much as we want. We have every right to come and take over your country. But if you so much as defend yourself, you're wrong and immoral, and how dare you, and you deserve death and hell. That's what we find in Islam. And even taking the example of something like the nation of Israel. How dare you? How dare you take this land? How dare you take any piece of land from Muslims? Well, my friends, where did Muslims get Medina? They kicked the Jews out. Now look at what you're saying. You have kicked some Palestinians out. And by the way, the Jews didn't kick the Palestinians out. The Muslims told the Palestinians to get out because they were ready to attack and slaughter everyone. So that's why the Palestinians were gone. But let's suppose for argument's sake that the Jews moved in and kicked everyone else out. If you believe that was wrong, why do you not condemn Muhammad for kicking the Jews out of Medina? If you say, give the land back to the Palestinians because they were in it and someone came in and kicked them out, great. Give Medina back to the Jews. 3 tribes of Jews used to live there. They used to own land. They were there for centuries. Muhammad came along and kicked them out and slaughtered a great deal of them. So if you really believe, hey, give it back to people who had it before you, grand. Be consistent with this. But all we ever find from Muslims is total inconsistency. We can attack you. We can slaughter you. We can do whatever we want to you. If you so much as defend yourself, you're horrible. You're horrible, and all the more reason to kill you.
All right. We have a call from Iman. Good evening, Iman. You're on the air. Go ahead. Iman?
Iman, are you there?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, hello?
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
I've heard that there are many copies of the Bible, but there's only one copy of the Quran. There's a lot of verses of the Bible, but only one copy, one verse of the Quran.
That's the only question you have?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We will answer that.
Thank you, Iman. You say you heard that, and you heard wrong. Yes, there are many copies of the Bible, and there are many copies of the Quran. Maybe what you meant is there are many manuscripts, ancient manuscripts of the Bible. That's true, and there are many ancient manuscripts of the Quran. Now, what we find in Christianity is that Christians acknowledge that there are differences in the manuscripts. We never find any major Christian doctrine affected by any of these differences. And the thing is, Christians are honest about this. You can go into any Christian bookstore and you can open up the history of the text of the Bible. What we find in Christianity is that since we preserve so carefully our manuscripts, we can almost always find the original reading. So what this means is, so let's suppose I make a book, and you copy it, and then your friend copies it, and then someone else copies it, and Pastor Joseph all make a copy of my book. Well, maybe one of you makes a mistake in writing down a verse, and you spell a word differently or something like that. What textual criticism allows us to do, in other words, when we compare the manuscripts, is it allows us to say, wait a minute, Iman made a copy, and someone else made a copy, and someone else made a copy, but Pastor Joseph's has a different word there. Well, which one goes back to the original? Obviously, the one that agrees with the majority and not the one where one person disagrees. So because we have so many manuscripts of the Bible, we can very easily construct the original reading in almost every instance, and you never find any major Christian doctrine affected. In other words, you don't find any manuscript saying Jesus didn't die. You don't find any manuscript saying Jesus never claimed to be divine. You don't find any manuscript saying Jesus didn't rise from the dead. You never find anything like this. So when we study the history of the text of the Bible, what it does is it confirms that we know what the original Bible said. And go to people like Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman would never say, we don't know what the original... I mean, he would say, you don't know the exact wording in every instance. But as far as some radically different message, Bart Ehrman would never say. In other words, the people who are very critical of Christianity would never say that. Now, that's the Bible. Again, Christians are honest. You can go into a Christian bookstore and find manuscripts and every difference, every spelling difference, every time that there's a word difference, you can find that. We're honest about it. Our scholars deal with that, and it helps us to construct the original document. In Islam, what happens is when the differences arise, Muslims pick one and then burn all the rest. And that happened actually in the history, in Muslim history. During the reign of Uthman, there were so many differences in the Quran. By the time of Uthman said, hey, we're about to have all kinds of problems here. We're about to have all sorts of disputes. We're about to go to war over all these differences in the Quran. So let's get together, establish one version of the Quran, and burn all the rest. This is what Uthman did. Now think about this. What were these differences? Well, if you take someone like Abdullah ibn Masud, by the way, Muhammad said, if you want to learn the Quran from anyone, you learn it from Abdullah ibn Masud. This is Muhammad's top guy. He didn't believe that Surah 1, Surah 113, and Surah 114 are supposed to be part of the Quran. They're not supposed to be in there. They're not the Quran. You take someone like Ubay ibn Ka'b. He says, yes, the 114 chapters that you have in the Quran today are supposed to be in there, but there are these extra 2 chapters. You had Muslims, the early Muslims, I'm talking about the companions of Muhammad, couldn't even agree on how many chapters were supposed to be in the Quran and what chapters were supposed to go in there. And this is just the difference in the number of chapters. They had tons of differences on their wordings of various surahs and so on. So what happened was, Uthman gets down there, he says, we're going to pick one version and we're going to burn all the rest. So think about this. Uthman says, let's destroy all the differences and just pick one so that we can be united. And even after that, there were tons of differences. There are tons of differences in the manuscripts of the Quran, and you could pick up manuscripts of the Quran today and compare them, and there are differences. But what we find in Islam is that Muslims deny it. They say it never happened. They say the Quran was handed down and Muslims copied it perfectly and there's never been any differences or variants. That's absolute nonsense. So what we find, and by the way, this is just a general rule. Anytime human beings are copying a document, human beings are going to make mistakes. When human beings write documents by hand, they're going to make a spelling mistake. They're going to do things like that. That's true in Islam. That's true in Christianity. Anytime human beings are involved, human beings are going to make mistakes. But what we find is that Muslims completely deny all the evidence and just stomp their feet and say the Quran's been perfectly preserved when it hasn't. And if you'd like to go into more detail on this, we can go into a ton of detail on all missing chapters of the Quran, missing verses of the Quran, missing phrases from the Quran. Tons of stuff came up missing from the Quran. Over 2/3, in fact, over 2/3 of Surah 33 came up missing. The people who had it memorized died in battle, and Muslims just couldn't find what made up the entire surah. So what we find, just to sum up, yes, there are differences, there are copyist mistakes and so on in the manuscript traditions of both religions, but Christians preserve the manuscripts so that we can compare them and figure out the original reading. Muslims burn theirs, and then we can never get to the original reading, and it's all in an effort to deceive believers into thinking that their books have been perfectly preserved. And I'd just like to say, your leaders, your imams, your sheikhs, and so on, they know this. They know that the Quran has been changed over and over again, because they know what Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim and Sunan Abu Dawud and the rest of the Muslim sources say about all the verses that came up missing, all the verses that were destroyed and so on. They know about this. So why do they tell you that the Quran has been perfectly preserved? Why do they lie? I'm telling you, they know it. And any Muslim out there, any sheikh, any expert in the Quran wants to call in and say that according to your sources, the Quran has been perfectly preserved, please call in. We can go into a lot of detail on this. I will even change one of the shows this weekend just to give you your own sources, your own most reliable sources on all of the changes in the Quran. Now again, your leaders, they know about this. They know that there have been all these changes, and they lie to you. Just compare this. In Christianity, if there are differences, we put a book out on the differences.